I'm Pam Fox at pamfox.org, and in today's video I'm going to be making one of my favorites, corn chowder. So for those of you that are joining new, welcome to the 28-day anti-reflux plant-based challenge, where we are eating plant-based foods and we are also eliminating common trigger foods. So make sure, if you haven't yet, check out the files on the Facebook group. So let's get started. This is one of my, I know I say it every time, but this is one of my all-time favorite meals. I make this at least once a month, if not twice a month. And my daughter Chelsea actually is the one that introduced me to this recipe, and I love it. And it's great for people with GERD. It does have coconut milk in it, so if you know for a fact that you can't do coconut milk or other, high-fat foods that come even from, plant foods such as avocados or coconut milk, then you could also always substitute something like rice milk or oat milk, so a lower fat version of a dairy-free milk. It's not going to have that coconutty flavor. If you really wanted that coconutty flavor without the coconut milk, you could always do like a coconut oil or a coconut, flavoring. I don't have any, but don't they make like, yeah, they make like coconut extract. So if you really wanted to get that coconut flavor, which it does add a lot to the dish. So, all right, so I just realized that I'm out of leeks, and I know out of solidarity I wasn't going to eat onions this month, but I am going to go ahead and put in an onion. So sorry about that. I could just leave it out altogether, but I'm just going to go ahead and chop this up and start. So I'm going to be cooking this in the Instant Pot today. Sorry. I'm going to be cooking this in the Instant Pot today, which if you don't have an Instant Pot, that's fine. You could just use a, a stovetop large pot. I'll sharpen my knife a little bit. Does anyone out there have an Instant Pot? Are any of you also Instant Pot lovers? Comment below if you are. I love mine. I use it that's what I use the most, especially since I moved here to this very small apartment. Excuse me, I'm just peeling those skins right into the garbage. It just makes it easier. So normally in this challenge we don't cook with onions. We replace onions with leeks, which I'm really enjoying, but I'm out of leeks today. So I am going to chop up, ooh, that smells really good. I haven't had a chopped onion in all month. Forgot what they smelled like. That smells really good. So one of the nice things about the Instant Pot, there's a lot of nice things about the Instant Pot, but is it makes for cooking oil-free really easy. So that's another thing we eliminate during this challenge is oil, at least, reduce it, if not eliminate it. I'm just going to add a little bit of water. And I've got some carrots and celery here. I just have them in this jar of water. I put them in yesterday because my celery got really limp. So that's just a little easy way to kind of crisp your celery back up again. Not that it matters for making soup, but I was snacking on it yesterday, so I'm just going to bite-size chop this. This soup is not a pureed soup or a bisque, so you just want to chop everything so that it's, in bite-sized pieces. That looks good. And carrots. So I'm just going to be putting everything in the Instant Pot, and then I'm just going to be cooking it for probably 3 minutes. It doesn't take long. You could cook it longer, but It's really just heating everything through. Right now it's just on the saute function. And then we're going to pressure cook it. And today I'm going to be talking more, so if you caught my last live, we were talking about stomach acid versus dietary acid and understanding the difference. And so today is going to be a bit of a continuation on that. We're going to be talking about the importance of stomach acid, what happens when we don't have adequate stomach acid. Carrots got stuck in the jar. And 3 ways that we can stimulate or improve our own body's production, or even, well, we'll talk more about that, but 3 ways we can get more stomach acid. So this recipe just calls for a couple of stalks of celery, a couple of stalks of carrots. You could do more or less depending on your taste. And it calls for, depending on the size of your potatoes, like 4 small, like medium-sized potatoes. I've got these little guys left over, so I'm going to chop those up first. They're little purple Yukons, I think. So again, just bite-sized pieces into the pot. I am so hungry. Sorry I didn't go live yesterday, guys. Not that, I mean, I don't know if anybody missed me, but I was going to make this yesterday, and I was looking forward to it all day. But I had to fill in at work for my husband, and he was supposed to be back by 7, and he didn't get back until, gosh, it was like 8:30 last night, so I really wasn't in a mood to come home and make this and do a live video at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And plus I had some leftover takeout from a Thai place. So I just made some extra rice and ate that for dinner. So I don't know if you can tell. These are gold Yukons. These are my favorite potato. Overboard there. But I'm just chopping these up bite size, and I'm leaving the skins on because I like potato skins. You could certainly peel them if you wanted to. So just little bite-sized pieces. And I think I'll do, what was that? It was 2 kind of, I don't know, medium size. I'll do 1 more. Alright, am I missing anything? I think that's it. I'm drinking water kefir today, which I am going to show you guys how to make. Alright, so at this point you just want to add in your liquid, which is a box of vegetable stock. I use mushroom stock, which I just make myself, so I'm going to do 4 cups of water. And about 2 tablespoons, I don't know, 2 spoonfuls of, this is mushroom, these are dried mushrooms that I've turned into a flour. And then a couple of tablespoons of liquid aminos. So this is in replacement of vegetable broth. It's a mushroom broth, basically. So 4 cups of water. So that's my broth. Oh, and we can't forget the corn. And then a can of coconut milk. This one I opened last night because my takeout needed a little bit of coconut milk. So I took a little bit out of that. And another nice thing about the Instant Pot is you just put everything in. I mean, I usually don't even, I don't even mix it up. It's just, it just kind of cooks all together. I am concerned about that coconut milk I just put in there. It's really one big lump. I'm just going to kind of potato mash it up a little bit. There. Oh, and you know what else we forgot? This is actually one of my favorite ingredients for this is where's my knife? Is peppers. So these are just baby peppers. Hi, Eileen. So if you're new to the challenge, we are using peppers, but we're using these orange peppers. I can't remember what the pH is. If someone wants to look it up and type it below. They are approved though they're not a common trigger food because their pH is a little bit, these orange peppers, or even the yellow peppers too, I think. They're kind of the same thing. They're not as acidic for some reason as red peppers or green peppers, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Because I thought all bell peppers were the same. They're just at different ripening stages, is what I thought. I might be wrong about that. So I'm not sure why a red pepper would be more acidic than an orange pepper. So I'm just using up, I keep these little baby bells in my freezer. That's a great tip. When these go on sale, you know, they come in a bag like this. So when these go on sale, if you've got room in your freezer, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll need a pepper, just like one pepper for a recipe, and I'll be at the store, and if they're not on sale, they're really expensive, you know, if they're out of season. Okay, so there's the peppers. Let's put in the corn, and then we can go ahead and hit the pressure cook button, and we can talk about stomach acid. So I really appreciate you guys. I know there's a few of you that are doing the challenge that have left some comments about how your progress is going in the Facebook group, in the 28-day challenge Facebook group. I really appreciate that feedback, and I hope that I have the world's worst can opener. I really need to get a new one. I've had this thing forever. So I'm just using canned corn. I typically like to buy frozen organic corn, but for some reason I keep seeing these on sale at my local grocery store, so I just pick them up and keep them in the cupboard. Oh my gosh, I really need a new can opener. I don't even know if this is gonna, it's working. I've had this forever. It's by Pampered Chef. It's supposed to be a good one, but it's just, I have to really labor to open cans up with it. I love it when the cans have the little pop top on them. There it goes. Okay. So yeah, I really like to keep frozen corn, just like buy a big bag at Costco of frozen corn and keep it in the freezer. That's really nice and handy. Okay, so the lid is on, and we're just going to hit, let's see, pressure cook, and we're just going to cook it for a couple of minutes is all it's going to take, like maybe 5, we'll do 4 minutes. It'll take longer than that because it has to release. And it has to heat up, so it won't just take 4 minutes, but it'll pressure cook for 4 minutes. Okay, give me just 1 second. I'm going to clean up my mess. Go. You guys notice I didn't put any spices in that. You don't need salt because the liquid aminos is salty. Normally when I normally make this, I do put in garlic powder and onion powder, but out of solidarity, I'm not doing that this month, but I don't even miss it. But this mushroom gives it, if you like mushrooms, this gives it so much depth of flavor. That's really kind of, I don't know, one of the secret ingredients or special ingredients. Okay. All right, so let's talk about stomach acid and how we can, maybe some things we can do to improve our situation. So just a reminder to anyone that's new, I'm not a doctor and I'm not an expert. These are just things that I share. I am an integrative nutrition health coach, what has become my kind of field of expertise has been hiatal hernias and really digestive disorders, although there is so much more to learn. And it's really, really actually an exciting field because there is a lot of research being done, especially in the area of the gut microbiota, you know, the bacteria that live in our gut and their function. Hey, Martha. Their function and their importance, and the importance of having that balance when there's a disturbance in the balance of your gut flora, how that can affect all of health, from digestion to depression, and everything in between. But I do suspect that with the research that's being done and what we're learning about the microbiota, that I think it's really going to be a game changer in the next 5, 10, 15 years in terms of, you know, medicine. Unfortunately, I'm sure that Big Pharma is right in there paying for a lot of this research to be done so that they can figure out a way to get their hands on the money by developing drugs that will, you know, help rebalance the gut flora and all of that. But to me, it seems that we're already figuring out how to do it, you know, on certain levels. Very naturally. A big area of research right now, and maybe you've heard of this, is fecal matter transplants, where they actually take fecal matter from a healthy individual and transplant it into, like, someone with maybe C. diff or, you know, any type of gastric infection that's very hard to cure or hard to cure. So that's someplace right now that's an area of research that's really fascinating and that I think will have a really big impact on these gastrointestinal disorders in the near future. So specifically, we're going to be talking about stomach acid. So your stomach acid is the acid. So when we smell food, when we see food, when we get ready to eat food, and when we begin to eat food, our body knows that it's time to make and secrete stomach acid because we need that acid to liquefy our food. And so, you know, your body you will begin to produce saliva and digestive enzymes and stomach acid, and the bacteria get revved up, and all of that is in harmony and symphony, very integrative, very comprehensively getting ready to digest your food and to perform the function of digestion. And the stomach acid is a very crucial part of that puzzle. It's a very crucial part of that digestive puzzle. All of it is. If you have an imbalance, you know, if you're lacking digestive enzymes, you're going to have an issue. If you're lacking stomach acid, you're going to have an issue. If you're lacking a diversity in your gut flora and your bacteria, you know, if you have pathogenic parasites and bacteria that are taking over in your gut, all of that is going to become an issue. But the stomach acid is what I want to talk about specifically. And the good news is there are things that we can do to stimulate our body's own production of stomach acid. And if we try all of those things and they just don't work, we can supplement with stomach acid, which I am going to talk about in today's video. So I started to remind you that I'm not a doctor and I'm not an expert. And the reason, hey Krista, thank you. The reason I always remind you guys of that is because I certainly want to be helpful. I don't want anyone to hear what I have to say and to misinterpret it and to go out and do something that's illogical for you and to harm yourselves. So when it comes to stomach acid, just keep in mind that it is acid. Like, it is acid. It's about as acidic as it can get. It is acid. And so as your body develops and secretes and pumps that acid into your stomach and the food comes into the stomach, it digests and liquefies that food and prepares it to go into the small intestine, because that's where it's further broken down and then absorbed by the body. So that's where the body then uses those nutrients in the food to live and for health. But the food has to be broken down and liquefied first, and that's the stomach acid's role. But the stomach acid is supposed to stay in the stomach, right? And so for those of you with reflux, we know that it's an issue when it doesn't, because it comes up and it burns us in places where it's not supposed to be. But we talked in the last video about distinguishing between dietary acid and stomach acid. So make sure that you understand that first. Yes, we do eliminate acidic foods in this challenge, or if you have reflux, you've probably been told, you know, to cut back on spicy foods and fatty foods and Coca-Cola and coffee and all of that. But that doesn't mean we need to, you know, minimize or weaken the acid in our stomach. We need good, strong, adequate stomach acid. And so unfortunately, when it comes to people with reflux, many of you are on what's known as a proton pump inhibitor, which does exactly what the title says. It inhibits, think of the proton pump as a literal pump that pumps acid into your stomach. And so you're taking a pill that inhibits this. And so essentially what you're doing is you are creating less stomach acid. And so what happens then, you might be thinking, well, if we have no stomach acid, how do we digest our food at all? And so you have to remember, we do still have enzymatic function. So that is happening, and that's performing digestion as well. And we also have mechanical function, and that's basically just your stomach. So when there's food in it, it will contract and squeeze and churn and beat up your food mechanically. So that's another form of digestion besides the chemical reactions that are taking place with the digestive fluids, the digestive juices. So that's still taking place. The enzymatic function is still taking place. What's not taking place is that acid that liquefies your food, turns it into what's called chyme, which is liquid food and acid. And then when it's liquefied, the valve that connects your stomach to your small intestine will know that, and it will open up and allow that chyme into your small intestine. So then what happens if we don't have stomach acid, and then our body has to rely on this mechanical digestion, is slowed digestion. So many of you have been diagnosed with slow digestion or delayed stomach emptying or weakening, you know, stomach motility. It can go by a lot of different names. Hey, Candy. And so this is really common for people who take a proton pump inhibitor to have delayed stomach emptying. And that just means that your food is now staying in your stomach for a longer period of time, right? Because there's no acid there. And so it has to, you know, it has to churn and squeeze and break down that food mechanically. And so it's going to take longer. And so then what happens? What happens if your food sits around for a long period of time in your stomach, or for a longer period of time? Well, what happens when food sits around? I mean, it's especially, you know, in a dark, wet environment, it's going to rot, right? It's sitting around for a long period of time, it's going to rot, and then a byproduct of that is going to be gas, which means what? Which means bloating. So not only do you have a full stomach for a longer period of time, now there's gas in your stomach, which means you have distension, bloating, discomfort, pain, and that can put pressure on your LES and cause reflux. So unfortunately, when we diminish our stomach acid, unfortunately a lot of things can go wrong. And so you might be wondering, well, why the heck did my doctor put me on this pill then if all these things could go wrong? And I'm not even done yet. And remember, guys, I'm not trying to scare anyone, and certainly don't go throw your medications in the toilet. That's not what this is about, and I do not promote that. You always want to work with your doctor to get off of your medications. You want to do it wisely, okay? Okay, so then why the heck would my doctor put me on these pills if there's so many things that can go wrong? Well, the trouble is if you do have ongoing repetitive reflux, that puts you at risk for ongoing repetitive injury to your esophagus. And that puts you at risk for esophageal cancer. So, you know, the doctor's going to look at the two. It's going to look at you, you know, maybe having, you know, bloating and discomfort or esophageal cancer, you know. Obviously, it's more important to give you this pill to minimize the burning in the esophagus so that you don't set yourself up for esophageal cancer. So that makes sense. But what doctors know and understand and agree to now is that long-term use of proton pump inhibitors is a bad thing and it should be avoided. It should be avoided. And so a proton pump inhibitor should always be a short-term fix. Not that it's always a fix. In fact, oftentimes it's not. It's just a management, really. But it can, you know, if it's keeping the acid from getting up into your throat, then it will give that esophagus time to heal, which is good. But is that addressing any underlying issue? You know, what's going to happen when you go off of that proton pump inhibitor? Is the reflux going to come back? Is the burning going to start all over again? So it's really important to understand this condition and to understand what you can do naturally to remedy the condition. And that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean a lot of different things. Holistic healing means a lot of different things, and it can mean different things to different people, okay? So let's move on. So, use of proton pump inhibitors will cause diminished stomach acid, and that can cause bloating, delayed stomach emptying. What else? So here's the big thing. Here's the big thing when it comes to long-term use of proton pump inhibitors in order to, you know, alleviate reflux, is that now your digestion is compromised. And what does that mean? It means that since you don't have your digestion working effectively and ideally and fully, you know, good, strong, healthy digestion, that means that your food is not getting fully digested, which means your food is not, the nutrients aren't getting fully absorbed. At least this puts you at high risk for this. And of course, everybody is going to be different. Everybody's going to be different. Some people have good, strong, you know, stomach motility, and that mechanical process of digesting their food is going to work out just fine for them. And they may take a proton pump inhibitor for several years and before they start to have issues. So it's going to be different for everybody, but let's make sure that's cooking. But the big thing is, the main concern is when we have weakened stomach acid, usually due to use of proton pump inhibitors. But a lot of people have weakened stomach acid just because they're getting older and they eat a poor diet. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Eileen. Yeah, well, unfortunately, esophageal cancer is on the rise. Yeah, so it's pretty, I mean, yeah. And your dad and his brother passed from stomach cancer. Yeah, and they kind of all can go hand in hand. Okay, so the big thing is with weakened stomach acid is vitamin deficiency. Okay, so what can happen if we have vitamin deficiency? Anything can happen if we have vitamin deficiency. I mean, you name it, from osteoporosis to heart disease to everything in between. Alzheimer's is a big concern. So long-term use of proton pump inhibitors, long-term poor digestion, long-term vitamin deficiency can set us up for all kinds of issues. And so, you know, a lot of people, they go into the doctor with all of these mystery conditions and they run, you know, the tests that are available, and they say, you seem healthy to me, and yet you have all these mystery symptoms. And so, I mean, in my opinion, a lot of this can fall back on the fact that we have vitamin deficiencies. We're not getting, you know, maybe we're eating a healthy diet, but because we have poor absorption, we're not getting the nutrients. because of deficiency, because of poor absorption. All right, so hopefully that kind of helps you to understand the importance of good, strong, adequate stomach acid. Now, for those of you who are taking proton pump inhibitors, I mean, this isn't meant to get everybody all freaked out and cause anxiety attacks, but, you know, reality is reality, and education is power, and we need to understand our own conditions, and we need to understand the drugs that we're taking, and we need to understand what their long-term impact is. We must understand these things. And what does that mean? It means that we have to be proactive. It means we have to get involved. It means we have to read, we need to ask questions, we need to do research, and we really need to understand. And every time we have a question and we get an answer to that question, and it brings up 5 more unanswered questions, we need to go out in search of finding the answers to those questions. Does it take time and effort? Yeah, it does, but you're worth it. Your health is worth it, and it's just, when it comes to your health, that's the first step in attaining and achieving and getting your health back is knowledge, is understanding your condition, understanding your doctor's treatment. Okay, understanding what those drugs are you're taking and what their risks are. Okay, so it's going to mean time and effort on your part. Okay, so if you are on a proton pump inhibitor, yes, you have weakened stomach acid, and yes, you are at higher risk for vitamin deficiency and disease. So you can talk to your doctor. You can see if there's an alternative drug that you can try instead of a proton pump inhibitor. And you can certainly look for alternative and natural forms of healing, which is what we're doing here. Which is exactly what we're doing here, right? We're on a plant-based diet that eliminates trigger foods in order to what? In order to promote healing. In order to promote true and effective healing of the tissues, okay? And then if you have a hiatal hernia, there's things that you can do for that as well. And I bring that up just because for a lot of people, and I was one of these, you can do everything right to remedy your GERD. If you have GERD or your LPR, you're doing everything right, and yet you still, and maybe it gets better, and yet you still have symptoms. And so if you have a hiatal hernia and your stomach is pushed up against your diaphragm or through your diaphragm, that is going to affect your lower esophageal sphincter, and that is going to cause a variety of symptoms. So that's a very mechanical or anatomical issue that needs to be addressed. And that can certainly be addressed naturally as well. So what can we do in order to rebalance these gastric juices and up our stomach acid? So I was going to talk about 3 different things that you can do. So the first thing that you can do is your diet. It's what we're doing here this month, which is a plant-based diet that would include certain foods that are, first of all, when we eat, that stimulates our body's own production of stomach acid. So when we eat anything, that's going to stimulate the body's production of stomach acid. For those of you who are not taking a proton pump inhibitor and are doing this challenge, you can incorporate certain foods that are going to stimulate your body's production of stomach acid even more so than just food in general. So these include foods that are typically bitter or sour. Bitter or sour. So unfortunately, bitter and sour foods are often acidic foods, which we are eliminating this month. So oftentimes with holistic healing, we have to layer. We have to layer these different treatments. So for example, if you have candida, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to eliminate all sugar to starve out the candida, you know, and then the second thing you're going to do is you're going to eat more fibrous foods, and then maybe the third thing you're going to do is you're going to supplement with different herbs. So you have this layering effect where you're attacking it holistically. Well, the same thing is true in this case with GERD. This month we are in the healing phase. We're eliminating common trigger foods that are acidic. But next month, or maybe the month after that, it's going to be different from everybody. Once you begin to become more and more symptom-free and you feel like you're managing and getting this under control, then you can start to reintroduce not junk foods or, you know, oily foods or spicy foods, you know, the foods that kind of got you into trouble in the first place, but you can start to reintroduce some of your more healthy plant foods, like oranges, for example, which is going to be, citrus is an example of something, again, sour or bitter, that is going to stimulate, it's going to better stimulate your body's own production of stomach acid. So what are the foods? So citrus, like lemon is a really good one. Vinegar, again, we're not doing vinegar this month, but once you start to reintroduce these foods, they're going to be very beneficial. And the number one food that you can eat, and if for some of you, maybe you already can tolerate lemon, maybe it's not an issue for you, so you could start, you know, supplementing with apple cider vinegar, lemon water, but the best thing I can recommend is fermented foods. And I'm not talking about the fermented foods you buy in the jar on the counter in the store. I'm talking about real live fermented foods. And these, again, bitter and sour. So something like sauerkraut, or something like fermented pickles, or something like kombucha, or something like coconut kefir. Oh, this is water kefir. A lot of sediment on the bottom. So the fermented foods are, they're just really good at stimulating your body's own production and releasing those good, strong, adequate stomach acid. So that's number one, is through eating more of your bitter and sour. Oh, and another one is, so I said citrus, I said vinegar, and I said fermented foods. So another one is, what do you call it? Just bitters. You can order bitters online, like a little jar, digestive bitters, and you spray it on your tongue and swallow it. It is acidic, so if you think that's going to be an issue for you, that's something you want to try later. But a lot of people report they get, if you belong to any of the support groups on Facebook, this is a really great example. You'll have one person saying, oh yeah, I drink apple cider vinegar in a shot of water every single morning, and that helps me so much. Another person drinks apple cider vinegar, and they're all inflamed and refluxing and in pain and flared. So, you know, everybody's going to be different. And we talked a lot last week about LPR and about pepsin and about why acidic foods will activate the pepsin and create that enzymatic process that will begin to irritate and injure your throat. If you're wondering what all that noise is, that's my Instant Pot releasing the steam, which means it's almost done. Okay, so that's number one. So the second thing that we can do to get more stomach acid is to supplement. And when it comes to supplementation of stomach acid, you really want to be logical, you want to be careful, and it's best to work with your doctor. And this is one of these things where you'll see across the board, you'll see people saying, oh my gosh, that was all I needed. I supplemented and I'm all better. And then you'll see people over here that went to the ER after supplementing with HCl. So HCl is just hydrochloric acid, and you can buy it in pill form, and you supplement with it, and you're actually just adding in stomach acid in supplementation form, so in pill form. And this will, because it's in a pill, when it's going down, the acid's not going to bother your esophagus at all. It's just going to go into the stomach and open up, and it's going to give you more acid. And so the way people supplement with hydrochloric acid is they'll start with just like one pill or maybe 2 pills with their largest meal of the day, and what they'll look for is called the burn response. And what that is it's just a burning sensation that you feel in your stomach that's letting you know that you have adequate stomach acid. So for example, you would take 1 pill on day 1 with your largest meal, wait for the burn response. I didn't feel anything, so the next day you take 2 pills with your largest meal. Wait for the burn response. I didn't feel anything. The next day you take 3 pills with your largest meal. You wait for the burn response, you don't. So you keep doing this, you're looking for your dosage, basically. So maybe you get to day 4, you take 4 pills, you feel the burn response, and it's not necessarily reflux. You feel like the burning in your stomach because you have all this stomach acid, and it's too much, you'll feel it burning. You'll feel it burning. And so then when you do get the burn response, you can drink some water to dilute that and get relief, or you can put a pinch of baking soda in some water and drink that to neutralize that acid a little bit and dilute it and get relief. So that's basically what you do. I would recommend, if you are going to investigate and experiment with HCl, that you get the HCl without pepsin. You don't really need, typically people will buy the betaine HCl with pepsin. And the pepsin, again, is a protein enzyme. It digests protein. So on a plant-based diet, there's protein in all plant foods, so we still need enzymes that digest protein. Our body makes those. We don't need it in supplement form. And we certainly don't need to be adding in more pepsin if we already have reflux. So you would just get the HCl without pepsin. And again, it's best to do this under your doctor's supervision. Now please hear what I'm about to say, and I know I say this all the time, but I'll continue to say it. If you have ulcers or you suspect you have ulcers, do not supplement with HCl. Because if you have an ulcer, that means you have an injury or a sore or a hole in the lining of your stomach. And if you pour a bunch of acid in there, it's just going to burn that and irritate it even more, and it could burn right through your stomach and you could bleed internally. Okay? So that's why it's best to do this under medical supervision, because they know you, they know your case, they know your situation, they know all about everything. I don't know you, okay? So you've got to be logical about this. So that's number 2, is supplementation. Something to investigate and look into. Number 3 is to improve your vagal tone. So we're just trying to speed this along. There's a manual release valve on here, so I'm just pushing it down to get the steam out faster. Okay, so this might sound like, that's something to disregard, but it's really not. Your vagus nerve has many important functions in the body, and one of them is digestion and, more specifically, the body's production and release of stomach acid. Okay? So a lot of people have compromised vagal tone, and what does that mean? Well, again, your vagus nerve is the nerve that begins in the brain, and it innervates the esophagus and the heart and the lungs and the stomach and most of the organs in the abdominal cavity. It's known as the wandering nerve, and it innervates all of these organs, which means it supplies nerve function to all of these different organs in our body, and it has a lot of vital functions within the body. It's a nerve. It's basically a nerve, and it can be compromised for a number of reasons. And having a hiatal hernia is really high on the list. Having any type of exploratory surgery or any type of diagnostics done, like an endoscopy, for example, can temporarily injure your vagus nerve and cause poor vagal tone. Having any type of gastric infection or condition, like inflammatory bowel disease, C. diff, these can all affect the vagus nerve because we have so much inflammation when we have those inflammatory disorders. And so for a variety of reasons, we can have compromised vagal function. And so by improving that vagal function or that vagal tone, we can improve digestion, okay? And so then how do we do that? Well, one of the best ways or most effective ways to improve vagal tone is through breath work. Which is free, it's easy, it's relaxing, and it's beneficial on a whole number of levels. And so I'm talking about like meditative breath work. And so just a little bit about that, just to kind of understand how that would affect your vagus nerve. First of all, when we do breath work, I was just thinking if I could hold that down, it wouldn't be so loud. It's actually louder. Louder. It's stressing me out. So I want to talk about breath work and relaxation. I've got all this noise behind me. So breath work or meditative breath work, when done in a manner where we connect with the vibration and the sound of our breath, I did a whole video on this, that vibratory breath, kind of like if you think about when someone is just about to fall asleep and they're not full on snoring, but they're breathing deeply and you can hear that vibration of the kind of hear the breath, that vibration. When we connect with that, when we breathe, when we breathe or practice breath work, it's almost like a massage or a therapy for your vagus nerve. Okay? And so that repetitive, relaxing state of breath work with the repetitive kind of vibratory massage of that nerve it can be very therapeutic and improve your vagal tone, which is what we want. We want to have good, effective, ideal working vagal function for a number of reasons when it comes to health. So breath work is really beneficial in that way. And then also, when we practice meditative breathing, we practice a meditative state, which means relaxation, which means slowing the breath, which means the muscles begin to release. They begin to let go of tension, which is, usually the reason people come to breath work in the first place is to manage their stress, right? To release that tension, to let it go, whether it's physical tension in the muscles, emotional tension, just letting it go with every exhalation. And so what happens when we practice this meditative breath work is that the body will shift. It will make a shift from a state of being stressed, right? And when the body is stressed, it puts things like healing and digestion as low priority. Okay? They're not top priority, they're low priority. When we're in a state of stress, even if it's mild stress, even if you're brushing your teeth, getting ready to go to work, thinking about your day, and you've got a lot to do, and you're in this mild state of stress, all right? That puts us in a state where the body's priority is survival, okay? The body's priority isn't healing and digestion. It's survival. So we oftentimes go back and forth. You can think of it as the parasympathetic versus the sympathetic regulation, so we can be in one or the other. And an easier way to think of this is fight or flight versus rest and relaxation. So when you're in a state of fight or flight, and if you think of a continuum being extreme fight or flight here and extreme relaxation here, and then there's everything in between. Okay, so you might think, well, I'm not really that stressed. You could just be you could be worried, you could be, scared for somebody that you just found out, is really struggling with something. It doesn't matter. All of this worry, fear, obsessiveness, even just being cold, being uncomfortable, all of these things can cause stress. It can cause stress, and it can make us push further into that state towards fight or flight, okay? Which moves us farther away from the body prioritizing rest and digestion and healing, okay? So when the body goes, all is well, there's no stress, what does it do? It makes healing, digestion, relaxation, letting go, it makes all of that a priority. Because what? Because we purposefully are practicing this meditative breath work that relaxes the body and helps us to helps again release that tension, whether it's muscle tension, emotional tension, whatever. And I mean, they say that in a state of meditative relaxation, the body is more able to tap into that, rest and digest and heal in that state than even when we're sleeping at night, especially if we're a person who manages stress poorly. If you're a person that manages stress poorly, which just means you really don't have these things in place where you're actively managing your stress, like maybe you never exercise, or maybe you bottle up all your emotions, and maybe you don't have a meditative practice or whatever. Maybe you're in a painful relationship, or you just have a lot going on. You're just getting bombarded from a lot of different angles. Even when you sleep at night, if you're that person that's really poor at managing your stress, even when you sleep at night, your body is prioritizing survival over healing and digestion. And so what does all of this mean? Well, it means that if we can practice breath work, we're going to improve our vagal tone. We're going to be better at managing our stress so that we're tapping into that upregulation of the parasympathetic nervous system more often, so that our body can prioritize healing and digestion, okay? And not always be in this state of, fight or flight, where it's just like shields up, torpedoes incoming, we need to divert all auxiliary power to survival right here because we're being attacked. I like to use that Star Trek reference because it makes a lot of sense to me, where, when your body's being attacked in a manner where it senses that it's urgent, and that you are in trouble, that you are at risk, your health is at risk, it's going to do what it can to protect you, which means shields up and all auxiliary power goes to survival. We can put resting and healing and digestion, we can put those on the back burner for now because they are not critical for survival. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys have any comments, be sure to post them below. Woo! And I will answer them either now or later. Oh yeah. What did I cook last time on Tuesday? Oh, I made that spaghetti. Oh my gosh, that was so good. That linguine, the pesto pasta. I just want you guys to know that I did not eat all of that food, if any of you were wondering. So that pasta is a high-fat dish with the avocado. I put hemp seeds in mine, but it calls for nuts, so any of the nuts are going to be high-fat. And then what else? I thought there wasn't another source of fat in it, but it's a high-fat dish. So it's pretty common to fill up quickly on a calorically dense meal like that. So I was not able to eat the whole thing. I was just so starving. That's why I made so much. But I got up the very next morning and I ate the leftovers cold for breakfast, and then I had that leftover sauce. I made more pasta and I ate the leftovers for lunch as well. So, all right, guys. So here's what we have. Corn chowder. Doesn't that look good? It's hot. Oh, it's so rich. Those potatoes, the Yukon potatoes, they have just such a creamy, nice, almost sweetness to them, a creamy texture, and the corn is sweet, and the coconut milk just adds a real depth to it because it's, it's a fatty, rich flavor. And then it's just got a lot going on. I love the peppers in this. I love the color, from the carrots and the peppers and the yellow and the corn. And then I can just taste that mushroom broth too, which I just love. And it's got the liquid aminos in it, which gives it plenty of saltiness, so it really doesn't even need salt, or you know, you could add pepper to this. We're not doing pepper this month, so. All right, so I'm gonna let this cool, and then I need to start itemizing receipts because it's that time of year. So yeah, we've got about a week left in the challenge. I'll be back on, actually tomorrow, I'll be back tomorrow doing Q&A. So that'll be tomorrow morning, probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And then next week we'll do, I think we'll be doing 2 more recipes. And that'll be it. And then we'll be heading into March, which will be, for some of you, the maintenance phase, which means you'll be able to reintroduce certain foods if you want to try that. For others, you may need another month on this healing phase, this plant-based month with, you know, eliminating common trigger foods. It's going to be different for everybody. So, all right, thanks everybody for watching, and hopefully we'll see you back here tomorrow.